this. Let me do the recording. Thank you all for joining this breakout session. I'm sure all of you have some questions for Amanda, but I'll be keeping track of the chat and have some potential questions if we need to kickstart the discussion. Thank you so much, Amanda, for that presentation. It was really interesting and provided a lot of good takeaways.
Thank you. And we got Nick on the line too. We got our mitigation guru. And he is our state planner. So we're eager for any questions you might have, and we can elaborate or clarify anything, or just walk you through some maybe ideas you have for next round, or I'm up in there. We're here.
Well, that's good. I've got some questions. Since y'all did the first round of BRIC applications, what are some things that y'all would have done differently? What are some things that kind of caught you off guard that you could share with other states that are going to be doing grant applications this year?
Well, the fact that we had been pursuing so much EA activities to gear up to something like this already over the last year and a half, and we already had implemented on a smaller scale through SCP the same exact scope, but just with one area development district. Really, we've been this seed has been planted, and as soon as BRIC came about and we read how it fit in, this round for us, and just with my experience, it kind of fell in place very well. There weren't a lot of hiccups. We really had to decipher how it wasn't planning, how it was project scoping, how we did fit within the participation, but really the activity that we had in mind that we kind of already had ingrained, and we're thinking, we just were waiting for funding, and then the opportunity arose. We kind of were able to already fill in the dots because we had the bullets created. So this isn't as good of an example maybe of like a first experience, what were the hiccups, because we were actually kind of waiting for this type of opportunity. So what I would suggest, Nick, did you feel like there were any hiccups or things that we would have done different? Or
no, regarding this type of project, I don't feel, I think you've touched upon any that when it comes to a scoping or a planning type project, always the issue is being able to be clear at the time that you're writing your application about what it is exactly you're going to do for the scope of work. So like the application for project scope or planning, you're generally writing a lot because you're telling everybody what it is, because your budget is generally is pretty general, like you mentioned during the presentation, Amanda, about it's personnel, it's salaries, benefits, indirect costs.
I have 2 line items for this budget. It's 2% information dissemination to the EIS Council, and then it's project administration by way of ads times versus salary.
So that ties in with the so maybe a complication hiccup. I mean, it wasn't really an issue for this particular cycle, because like you said, Amanda, you already had you knew exactly.
Yeah, we were just waiting. Waiting, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, this BRIC thing is really happening. So what we were able to do on a smaller scale, and would have continued to do each annual year with SCP based on our funding, so that we could eventually tackle the Commonwealth. BRIC gave us the opportunity to hit a regional level where we're saying, boom, we're going east to west, north to south, and it's going to be more efficient in planning. This is a great time to be doing feasibility studies. This is a great time to be doing the what ifs.
Yeah, and to that point too, I think as a general, I'm not speaking obviously, with a ton of experience, but like with the BRIC program generally, one lesson from this particular go round is the point system that they use to prioritize is for real. I mean, that is and it is highly competitive. So what you just said about feasibility studies and project scoping, really take advantage of that if you can. I mean, the idea that FEMA has a specific call out for the ability to either develop a better set of mitigation actions or better set of mitigation projects specifically, or to the original project scope, the core project scope mindset is you do all the work necessary in order to eventually apply for an application under one of future FEMA HMA program. So under BRIC 2022 or under the future hazard mitigation grant program. I mean, what you just said, Amanda, is perfect about, you know, take advantage of that in terms of, because, you know, some of these projects, yeah, that's all I'll say with that.
Well, and because a lot of times the opportunity to do the pre-planning part, there wasn't a lot of funding available. BRIC, the way that they changed their principles and the idea of pre-disaster planning truly is essential versus where HMGP, where post-disaster, you have to prove the damages before I'll give you any taxpayer dollars. Well, I get that, but when you foresee the problem and you can't really do anything about it because you actually really need that funding, it becomes very hard on communities that eventually have to deal with this problem. How many times do they have to deal with this problem and then eventually mitigate it because they're now eligible based on their damages? So this pre-planning stuff is not a joke. They've expanded it. They gave us some more money. So they went from the 600 to the million for that. So that's excellent. They obviously saw the need. There was a lot of planning projects that came through, billions of dollars worth, and just a small amount per state got picked. So what are you interested in? Are you interested in microgrids? Are you interested in solar? Are you interested in backup capacity? Do you need feasibility studies that are on the shelf right now that you wished you could work on this area of town, but you can't because you're not exactly sure what you need? This money right now, that is what it's out there for. And it's all in preparation for planning and eventually setting actions to be able to mitigate the damages so that the damage loss cycles, we can stop it. So that's about all I've got to say as far as the CNCB, how it took us to put the stuff together and did we have any hiccups and what would we do different? We just had ideas and we started running with it.
Great, thanks so much.
Welcome.
I am going to be putting together a very large project package, but that's through HMA because we've had wildland fires, and so we need to fix the problem that we've already experienced. But our coastal communities are more situated for BRIC funding. So just trying to get a better idea of because y'all are essentially doing y'all essentially did the same project that I've also been trying to figure out how to get funded. So that's why I kind of wanted to know how, like, what was the challenges that y'all had.
Okay, well, with that being said, a challenge would be connecting to the locals. I had the bridge of knowing that Kentucky has a very smooth process already with mitigation planning and it's done way of area development district. So that niche right there really set Kentucky up for success. So I was able to go talk to executive directors at 15 different entities versus 120 directors, because that's how many counties we have. And then I said, hey guys, what if I could get funding to do this? You got to put in the legwork, but I'm going to pay you to do it. That's a no-brainer. So if there were to be a hiccup for other state energy offices, is the bridge there and do you already have those connections?
Okay, well, that's easy. And the answer is yes, I already have those connections. It was just more of the
set you up for at least it's setting the stones for you. And that's what state energy offices right now are trying to do. Just get those stones set so that we can start climbing up.
Okay, because that's mostly what I wanted to find out is what was your challenges in the actual application process versus the relationship piece. So I really appreciate it. Very inspirational to those of us who are in the efforts of trying to do energy resilience at a much larger scale versus just individual facilities or things.
Right. Well, keep me updated. I'm always interested in hearing what's going on, or if you ever have just some random questions or trying to fit a puzzle piece together.
Yeah, thanks so much.
You're welcome. Who else is working on some BRIC stuff? Ed, what are y'all doing?
Hear me?
Well,
Hey, Amanda.
Hey.
I'll let
no, go ahead.
Hey, Brandy.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Nice
Thanks
to hear
for
from you.
speaking today. I appreciate it. I just had a quick question. It sounds like you've commented some of the things we talk about, relationships and how key that is for response. So this is on the preparedness side, which is fantastic. Right. I was curious, when you did that outreach and to your existing relationships, was there an ask of any of the local communities? Kind of how do they Are they committing, whether that is just through, a letter of commitment or anything else, to work with you? And then knowing that you're still working with a larger group, is there any prioritization you're looking at as far as communities that have the highest risk through threats and hazards, or?
Okay, yes, so you're good. So when we reached out to the local ads, and because they're responsible for the planning, and I said, hey, and I did this through way of Nick as well, because it'd been a year or so since I'd been engaged with them. And he gave me a few contacts, and I said, hey, really looking to get into the energy world. And once we realized we had this opportunity, just said to them, is this something that you're willing to do? We brought them together all in one room. All 15 area development districts directors were in one room. And what I said is, I have basically the amount of money that I'm going to divide up amongst you all very equally. And what we're going to allow them to do is, since they're the planners of their region, we're going to allow them to prioritize what critical facilities they are going to assess. We're going to, and to what extent they're going to do it based on the funding that we're providing them. So a lot of the limitation on is every critical facility in your counties going to be assessed is definitely based on the funding opportunity. And right now, divided amongst 15, there's a decent amount, which will give them the opportunity to assess and build a report. But they're going to have to pick if they can afford to do all of the facilities that are in, maybe say they have 5 counties in their region. So they're going to be assessing 5 counties, how many critical facilities are within. If they realize they don't have the manpower and or the time, then they're going to have to sit down as a communities and figure out which top critical facilities are the most important to them. And that's also going to be based off how they prioritize things in their mitigation planning, of which they're familiar with. So we're giving that responsibility to each individual ad. So the reports will not be identical. There will be a streamlined process of questionnaire that will be developed as part of the information dissemination. EIS Council is going to take parts of the toolkit and create a survey that's going to be disseminated across, streamlined in one process, which we're really excited about that. But the way the information is gathered and then reported to us is going to look a little different. We also explained to them that maybe not all ads will be able to participate if in some reason, at some junction, when this does get approved, the courts has changed, that the money would be disseminated against however many ads were willing to participate. And that if some were bigger than others and they wanted to talk amongst themselves and one ad takes less and gives, I'm kind of leaving that up to them right now. And still everything's up in the air based on any questions FEMA might have based on our budget that we've proposed. Did I answer?
Yes, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, can I also add, and this goes to Elizabeth's earlier point too, you asked about, commitment, a formal commitment for the application. I think ideally this goes to Amanda's point about the partnerships and about the lead time into a project like this is technically significant, because ideally you do want, as a short brief answer, you do want letters of commitment to those with whom entity that you're going to subcontract or work with formally. I think especially if a component of their contribution to the project involves cost sharing. Yes, letters of commitment or whatever, but that would be that particular thing would be necessary for the application. And then, but that leads to Elizabeth's part, of a particular complication. What Amanda is describing is, like I said, I don't know how to say that. The application itself is going to be kind of vague. It's going to, it's going to ask you open-ended questions, and you really do like a lot. There's significant time spent fleshing out exactly like what that planning scope of work is going to be and describing that. I mean, you've got to assume, total ignorance on the side of the reviewer, about what it is that you intend to do, with the budget that you're prescribing. And, so we had our budget essentially, or Amanda had, OEP had its budget. And that budget dictated a lot of, the limitations to the scope of work, which means there's a lot of, very clear explanation about, what exactly is going on. Yeah, I'm beating a dead horse with that, but that is technically a complication. Or, be clear, know what it is that you are asking for regarding this project scoping or planning related activity. And then letters of commitment, yes.
I realize I did not completely answer that. We did not request a funds commitment letter or anything like that from any of the ads. Because eventually, if we get approved, we will then contract with them, and then we will set the language, and you know what I mean? So their commitment did not go into the application.
Ed, did you have a project you wanted to talk about?
No, I'm more here trying to learn on how to better give our get our projects funded more than anything else. So we only were able to, Louisiana didn't fare very well in the funding in the first round. So I'm just here to learn more than anything else.
Amanda, did you have other projects that didn't get funded that you would want to talk about? Kind of if you have any lessons learned or advice about why you think that might have happened?
We did not, and the only reason probably at this point was we put in a letter of intent for the due date that it was for, and then we actually were under the impression at the time that we did not receive any funding for consideration through the state HMA office, and that was because someone else had been allocated that potential funding. But right at the last minute, something maybe they had dropped out or something had happened, and an opportunity came to our office. So we had, I think maybe shy of a week and a half to take a letter of intent, make it into a full-blown painted picture, and then get with our financial people. There's about 7 layers, and get a contract, get paperwork signed. So it was a feat for the EEC cabinet. We actually got it done, I think, first in history to have something done that fast, but we just didn't have enough time to actually sit and think about something else based on the time that we were given. And we were happy to have the opportunity, but not this round. I'm not even sure I'm going to have much for 2021. There's a lot of funding streams out right now, so we'll see.
I'll just dive in and mention that PDAS Kumar did mention this morning that we are trying to work with the FEMA BRIC team, so Caesar is going to continue to work with that. We have high level kind of understanding of where some of the states ran into challenges and around the BCA toolkit. But if any of you want to share anything further, it doesn't need to be through this venue, but feel free to shoot us an email. If there's any very specifics you want us to kind of dive into when we're having conversations with the national labs, with the FEMA BRIC team. We're very in tune with NASIO, so we've heard a lot through them, but I think the more information we get, that always helps us. So if there's anything very specific, we were applying this type of project, it was denied, or we couldn't get the BCA toolkit to work because of these variables or these data points we were looking at, we're always happy to help that data. Thanks.
That's really beneficial. That's going to help the state energy offices big time. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it might, for this project in particular, I know you worked really closely with the Emergency Management Office. Do you want to speak a little bit to that relationship and kind of if that was something you developed on your own or if you built it out over the last 5 or 10 years?
I had the opportunity to work with KYM for several years in the mitigation realm. So I was able to kind of become a subject matter expert, and then just kind of decided I wanted to try something different, jumped into energy. But I had no idea how much energy and the EM world collaborated genuinely. And as a project manager, grant writer for mitigation, yes, we were concerned that critical facilities had backup power, but I didn't think about the fuel that went in it and how long they had that. And do you have a plan for it? And do you know where your nearest fuel source is? And do you have contracts? That stuff didn't cross my mind because no one brought that to my attention. And so in the EM world, we have ways of mitigating things, but a lot of times emergencies and crisis and problems start local. And so until we know about them, we don't really talk about them. And it's for mainly just the ignorance of it because it's not our wheelhouse. And so right now, the energy and mitigation world are colliding in great waves, and it's a great time to be in the energy sector. And just having some past experiences on how mitigation grants are written, federal language versus state language versus local language. That was a big up for me in being able to talk to the locals around the state. I could connect with them, and I could explain what that 44 CFR was saying that no one quite understood because it seemed so ambiguous. So I really lucked out by having a past relationship with KYM and just a fair understanding of how the emergency response world works and how FEMA language is incorporated into the grants. So. Nick, you got anything?
No,
I was just happy they were like mitigation. I was like, really? I still get to play? So at one point I was talking to Nick, it'd been a year or so, but I said, oh, I missed mitigation. And then I sat back and I thought, wait a minute, that's what we're talking about right now. So I really lucked out. And I'm eager to talk to any other energy offices. Now, the energy stuff's new to me too. So me learning what type of energy projects are actually out there and what people are wanting is very new to me. So trying to plug in what it is that you think you need into the FEMA world, that's where maybe I can help a little bit as far as the energy sector.
That's helpful. Yeah. So not to put anyone on the spot, but Russell, I know North Carolina had a few projects selected for further review. Is there any tips or tricks you can add to the discussion that might be helpful? It looks like you unmuted, but I don't think we can hear you. Well, we can circle back to you, Russell, if you're able to get yourself unmuted. Are there any other states in the audience that had projects selected for further review that they'd like to talk about, or any other questions you have for the Kentucky team?
How's your map going?
Say it again.
How's your map going?
My map?
Yeah, the one that y'all were doing the analysis on, heat map analysis for critical facilities.
Oh, I'm sorry, Eli. I'm like, hold on, I'm going through my strategic plan. I'm like, what bullet is that? It's going pretty good. To be honest with you, a lot of things got put to the side for a moment due to the EA plan. I'm at the very end of it. Legal's reviewing it now. Of course, the infrastructure bill just came out, and if passed, there are some criteria in there that might alter some of the things that or things I just need to include in the plan. So right now, that's been my top priority along with BRIC. So I got a lot of ideas. I got a lot of bullets on my strategic plan, but the map hasn't moved as far as I'd like it to. Not yet.
Well, I just didn't know if your map was a part of your BRIC application, or the data that you'd be collecting would be inputted into your map to help with further mitigation projects and support for response activities.
Not at this time, but that is the actual goal. So we did a microgrid study for deployment. And so we've got some really good info there, doing this heat map censoring and stuff for hubs. That is also something, but really what I have to do is I have to take that data, start regurgitating it, put it into a pretty picture, and go talk to my locals. So as soon as that they know, and I've explained the microgrid a little bit more, but really go sit down and talk to them and say, hey, I've identified areas within your region that this proposal says is a perfect deployment area for resilience. Are you interested in doing a feasibility study? Just get them started. So I really just got to get down and start talking to them about the resources and all the tools that we've got available for them to be able to assess their emergency planning.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Amanda, do you think you'll be looking for BRIC funding for any of these microgrid projects in the future?
I'm currently under reviewing areas of the Commonwealth that are under TVA territory that fit for deployment. And I have gathered about 400 sites. So with that being said, what I would do is take this data, and it's all behind the scenes. No one knows I'm really doing it yet, but behind the scenes to say, okay, where are they located? How many are within the regions? And then start talking to the ads, because the ads are the planners who talk to their regions, who get to the judges, and start the conversation there. That's something I look forward to doing. I don't know if I'll be able to get it in this round, but the ball is rolling.
That's great to hear. Well, I just have one last question for you and anyone else in the group. Kind of, what else can NASIO do to help you out, and DOE, what resources would be helpful for you all going forward?
I guess once you have a project, energy related project that was successful, passed, we best practice it, we show it, we share it. No, you don't have to recreate a wheel. Once someone sees the bullets that need to be filled out, then they'll know what information they need to get. So sometimes just having something that has been approved, passed, maybe at the very end of the project, once it's been, and they can show resilience, or, let us see it, share it. Of course, that'll be along down the road. Right now, I think y'all are doing great. The fact that you are doing all these seminars and stuff and looking out to help communities and state energy offices with BCAs alone. So just keep up with what you're doing. We really appreciate it.
Great, thanks, Amanda. Yeah, we're going to have a great session on BCAs later on in the workshop. So hopefully can answer some more questions there. Well, if no one else has any other questions or comments, we can head back to the main room. It's going to be about a half-hour break right now. So you can either hang out or go grab some lunch and come back at 3:30. Thanks, Amanda. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.